Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel.
We're the Dawnties.
My name is Rochelle.
Who am I?
Every video? Why not? It's just because it makes you so mad.
I'm your favorite Donna.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about the best books that we read in the month of March.
She limited me to 3.
I know, it was very, very hard. We both read some really amazing books, and I had to struggle to pick my 3.
I did too.
It was hard.
It was hard.
I listened to a couple of audiobooks
Yeah.
that I really enjoyed. One of them was Stephen King's 11/22/63.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to that in audiobook, and
It's like 30 hours long though. It's long.
it was a long book. That's why I did the audio instead of holding a break.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to know the places that he was talking about, because he talked about when Oswald lived in Fort Worth, behind the old Montgomery Ward's building that got hit by a tornado. If you are from Fort Worth or know Fort Worth history, you know about that. And just, it was interesting because I was listening to it and I was going, oh, I know that place.
So it's about the assassination of JFK?
Well, it's basically
What would happen? What would happen? What would happen if?
somebody was able to go back in time and prevent Lee Harvey Oswald
Okay.
from killing JFK.
Gotcha.
And it was very interesting. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it took her a while to listen to it, but she got through it and she was like, yeah, I really liked it.
I did like it, but it wasn't one of my top 3.
Speaking of just top 3, like, it was tough. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is The One by John Mars.
I liked it too.
I don't know if this is like a sci-fi thriller or something along those lines. So basically what this is about is this company has discovered a way for people to take a DNA test, and it would give them their 100% guaranteed true love. So there's they found a genetic match that would find you your true love. And so basically this whole book, we're following 5 different people in separate stories, but in the same world, obviously. So these 5 people took the test, and we find out a bunch of secrets and a bunch of twists and turns, because every person is like its own short story.
Yeah,
throughout the book.
but yeah.
And so one of the people is a serial killer. It's interesting. There's another person who is 38, divorced, no kids, and her family's hounding her to get married and have kids. And then we're following a CEO of a $1 billion company in here. And then we're following some 20-some-odd-year-old working an office job, very bored with life. And then, and then someone who is currently engaged. It was so good. And it is a series on Netflix. And after I read the book, I did watch the movie. And
You did?
No, I'm sorry. I watched the trailer. Because it's a show. It's not a movie. It's a show.
Okay.
In the trailer, I could tell what some of the people were swapped as far as gender, but it looks really good. And a lot of people said, don't watch the show. It's not good, but I'm actually might give it a shot one of these days because I really enjoyed this. This is about 430-ish pages, and I read this in one day. I could not put it down. And
yeah, it was good.
you kept looking over at me because I kept gasping.
Yeah.
So it was really good. And the way it's intertwined too is the first 5 chapters, you have chapter 1 on every single person, then it goes to chapter 2 of every single person. So I had to keep going because one would end on a cliffhanger and I had to read through 4 other people to get back to the first story. But it was so good. I made her read it and she was like, oh my gosh,
I liked
this is
it.
so good. This was amazing. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely pick it up. I definitely would recommend this one for sure.
All right.
So what is another one?
Okay, so another one that I read that you haven't read yet.
Not yet. I want to in the future.
Is The Maid. I read from my I read a
Kindle.
copy from my library on my Kindle.
Yeah, and it's
So-
Anita Prose.
My new Kindle Paperwhite. Thanks, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed The Maid. It was very funny. I found myself laughing out loud
Okay.
several times. I enjoyed it.
What's it
But
about?
it's a maid
Okay.
that loves her job. She's a little. She might
She's on
be.
the spectrum.
She might be on the
Autism
spectrum. She's
Yeah.
very OCD, like big time OCD.
So Maid is perfect for her.
Yes,
cleaning.
it's a perfect job for
It's a
her. She
routine.
loves her
Yeah.
job.
Okay.
And she's cleaning one of the guests that's a recurring guest. They come all the time.
Okay.
She's cleaning their room one day and she finds this really big important dude dead. And somehow they think she did it.
Because she's socially awkward,
Very
doesn't
awkward.
pick up on social cues.
Yeah.
So the way she acts makes people think that she did it.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to read through it. She's so funny. Just the way she talks like an old person, and she's like 25, 26. So, I mean,
Nice.
flowery prose every time she speaks, and she has a bow and stuff like that because she was raised by her grandma, and her grandmother taught her how to be proper. And it's funny. I enjoyed The Maid.
That is the one that I plan on getting from Book of the Month in the future, because I do want to read it, and I've heard a lot of great things about it. So
yeah.
I'm glad you read it and you liked it, and now I'm even more sure I want to read it.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Okay, the second book I'm going to talk about is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover.
I read it. It's one of them romance books.
It's one of them love books.
Okay, there is a romance in here, but I described to her to understand what I have seen from Colleen Hoover so far. This is my second book from her. It's like saying the TV show Friends is a romance.
Oh, that's not romance. That's my
Exactly.
friends.
There's romance in it. Of course, there's relationships, but it's about life and maturing and growing up and finding yourself and failures and successes and, of course, relationships. That's how I imagine Colleen Hoover's books because, this is only the second one I've read. Yes, there is a romance in it, kind of like a forbidden love, which was really interesting. But at the core of this, it's about a mother's love for her daughter. And so in this book, we're following this girl, Kenna. She has been in prison for 5 years, and she has a 4-year-old daughter.
That part sounds good. What'd she do?
You have to read it to find out.
So she has a 4-year-old daughter, and she's been in prison for 5 years. And so she gets out, and the story opens with her already been out for a few months. What?
Is it a guard's kid?
You have to read it to find out.
So, at the start of the book, she has been out of prison for a few months, saving up money to go to, I believe it's Denver is where this book is located, or where it takes place, because that's where her daughter is. And she has never met her daughter, because her daughter was premature and was taken from her before she could even lay eyes on her during birth. So, it's just, it's sweet. It's very, I think I would have cried if I was in a different headspace because there was one part that is very, very emotional. I did tear up, but nothing like Taylor Jenkins Reid makes me cry. But this was really, really good. And because I loved this, I just ordered 2 more Colleen Hoover books because I think she might rival Taylor Jenkins Reid as my favorite author.
Really?
It's so well done. So well
I
done.
might give it a shot. We'll
It's really
see.
good. And I love the cover. It's so pretty.
We'll see. No promises. All right. The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This was good.
Wow.
I really like this one.
This is making us go down the rabbit hole of her previous books.
Yeah.
So we're going to be getting a few more of her past titles in
Yeah.
the future. But
Yeah.
this one, so good. So what is this one about? Can you summarize it?
Okay, so this one, there is this person that is basically like she's almost like a podcaster, but she doesn't do a podcast.
She has a blog.
She has a blog.
Yeah.
And she does all of these cold cases, and her blog is called The Book of Cold Cases.
Yes.
And so this is just her part-time thing, but because she likes it.
It's her hobby.
Yeah. She works in a doctor's office, boring.
Receptionist.
She's a receptionist.
Yeah.
She's boring.
Yeah.
But at the town that she actually lives in, there was 20 years ago, there was...
Oh, like 40 years
Oh, it was
ago.
40 years
Yeah,
ago.
about
My
40
bad.
years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 40 years ago. Math. It was math. It stumped you.
40 years ago, there was 2 men that were murdered. Just murdered. Just
Random.
so, and they think they know who did it, and she goes on trial and everything, but she gets off.
Yeah.
And she still lives in that town. She's a billionaire, lives in this big old fancy house, huge house, all by herself.
Yeah.
The blogger lady
Yes.
meets the lady that lives in this house that
Got
got
Because she came into the doctor's office.
she got off, yeah. And then the blogger lady follows her, and then the lady that got off is like, "Why you following me?" And then they get to talking, and then so the lady that got off says, "All right, I know who you are. I'm gonna let you interview me." And then it goes
the
from
whole
there.
story unravels. Now, I will say there is a little bit of paranormal content in here, but it was scary enough for me to not read at night, but not so scary that I couldn't finish it. And this is one that I could not put down. And within the first...
Except for that one night.
Well, yeah, I was reading it at night, and I heard the house creak or whatever, so I put it down. I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. So I picked up the next day and finished it. But 20 pages in, I was hooked. 15 pages in, I looked at her and I said, you have to read this. And I hadn't even, gotten into the whole thing. But just the premise is so good. It's so spooky, but not too spooky. Very, very cool story. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that was a good one. This one I wanted to read so much that I actually read the physical copy. And I don't like reading a physical copy, but I read it in a day.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
So then the last book that I'm going to recommend is The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. This just came out in the month of March. This is about an attack that takes place at a Blockbuster in 1999 on New Year's Eve. And in the attack, everybody that works there dies except for one person. Fast forward about 20 years later, and there is another attack on the people working the night shift at a frozen yogurt shop. And in the attack, all but one person dies. So this is a really interesting story. I wish there was more Blockbuster in it, but just because of the nostalgic feels, this was still so good. I did not see the person who was responsible for both attacks. I did not see that coming. There was a lot to unravel, and it just kept going back and forth from the person who actually survived the attack in 1999 is now a therapist along those lines, and she's actually called in to talk to the person who survived the exact same attack she lived through 20 years before. So it's really cool how everything intertwined, and it was just a really fun ride. I really enjoyed this, and if you like this type of thrillers, I definitely would recommend this.
All right.
You haven't read this one yet.
Not yet. I haven't been able to find it on a different medium than a book because it's so heavy. It's so heavy.
It's heavy to hold a book. Oh my goodness, spoiled. You are so spoiled.
The book I'm reading right now, I'm having to read the physical copy, and I noticed I was holding it last night, and I was like, this is heavy.
First world problems. It's heavy.
Dial A for Aunties. Jessie Q. Sutanto.
Yes.
She read this one, and she loved it. I found it on an audiobook, and oh my God.
The audio is funny.
If you can get this on audiobook, you need to get it on audiobook. So
I loved this so much.
it's about this girl, Maid,
Yeah.
and her 4 aunties.
And they're so okay, let me take it from here.
Okay.
Okay, so it's about this girl who comes from this family. They're Korean, Indonesian.
Yeah,
They're Indonesian.
Chinese Indonesian, because they
Indonesian.
speak Mandarin
That's
and
right.
Indonesian.
Right. So the aunties have broken English, which is really funny in audio. Actually wasn't too hard to read physically, because I did read this whole thing physically. But it's about this girl who, after college, her aunties form they create their own business, a wedding business. And so the 4 aunties, they each have a specific job. One does makeup, one does flowers, one does entertainment, one does the baking, the desserts. So they take their niece and decide to have her there as their photographer. So they have a little business. And y'all, these aunties, they don't even have names.
They don't.
You have-
It's Auntie 1, Auntie 2, Ma, and Auntie 4.
Kind of. So you have Big Auntie, who is the oldest.
Oh, well, same.
Second auntie, Ma, and fourth auntie. But their dynamic between the 4 of them is so funny because it's just your typical sibling relationships and the jealousy and the rivalry and no, I'm right, you'll never listen to me. Oh, no, I'm right, you never listen to me. It is so funny. So basically, Ma decides to play matchmaker and goes online and gets a date for her daughter and shoves her out the door to a first date.
It don't turn out so great.
The girl ends up killing her date on the first date, and so she comes home and she tells her mom what happened, and her mom calls her sisters, so the 3 aunties join them, and basically the whole book is them trying to figure out what to do with this body.
There is
And
a little bit of Weekend at Bernie's in it. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just
But-
one moment.
And the audiobook, though, y'all, and the author says there's a foreword or
Yeah, there's a
something
prologue.
that talks about the broken English and how she wants to be sensitive, but she said, this is my family,
This is
and
what
this
it
is
is.
how my family talks.
Yeah.
And
Oh, here we go. Hold on. Some of the aunties in Dial A for Aunties speak the sort of broken English that my parents' generation does. Their grasp of the English language is not a reflection of their intelligence, but a reflection of the sacrifice that they have made for us. So,
yeah,
but
and
it's really good.
having worked with people that are very intelligent people, it's just English is their second language, and they have a little bit of that broken
Yeah.
English. I totally get that, and it's hysterical.
It is
so good.
funny because they bicker and they fight, and then there's just a lot of things that happens. And the first date occurs the night before their biggest wedding that they're putting on for a billionaire. The very next day, and they have this body and they have to figure out what to do with it, and it's just all in all such a fun story. And there is a sequel that comes out, or that just came out on March 29th, and it's called 4 Aunties and a Wedding. And I pre-ordered it, so it should be here any day now. But I am so excited for the next adventure of these aunties.
But if you can get the audiobook, get the audiobook.
Sure.
The audiobook on that is awesome.
And also, before she finished it, she looked at me and she said, I want to see this on a movie or TV show or something.
I
because
do.
It is so good. And now, okay, I do want to ask you, because I have said this a couple of times with hesitation. I liked this better than Finlay Donovan. What about you?
I did too.
Really?
And I loved Finlay
Finlay was
Donovan.
amazing. We talked about it in our last month's best
I love
books,
Finlay
but-
Donovan. But I was laughing out loud more.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
Well, of course, she had headphones on, so I didn't know what she was laughing at. And she would just randomly bust out. And I'm just like, oh, what'd you hear? What's happening now? Where are you at? Because I read this at the beginning of the month, and she just finished it at the very end of the month. So, yeah, I think this is my favorite book that I've read this month.
This is my favorite of the month.
So good.
It was
So good.
Audiobook, y'all.
Anyways, that's gonna do it for us today. Leave a comment down below. Let us know if you have read any of these books or if you have any recommendations for us around these lines. I mean, we kind of like a variety. Mainly thrillers, but
I'm all about the thriller, the horror.
Anything heartfelt, I'm all about. Thrilling, funny murder, like Finlay, but you know.
I'm not really into that heartfelt, but you already knew that about me. Hey, you have been enjoying the Taylor Jenkins Read books that you have read. Yeah, they're heartfelt. Yeah, I didn't cry. I didn't say you were gonna cry. That one, you bawling your blood. It was so good, though. So good.
That's gonna do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.